Good morning, Mr. Patil. How are you doing? So nice to see you. It's been a while. How's the book? Uh, how to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. Very curious to know your thoughts. Did you finish it? How was it? Are you still at it? What's going on? I'll just go live on LinkedIn till then. I finished it a few days ago. Wow. How was it? You didn't tell me. What do you think? I deeply relate to it. The chapter of energy, so nice, right? And the overall book experience. Did you find it funny? Did you like laugh at some places? And the entire bit of it. Did you appreciate the sense of humor? I really love his sense of humor. By the way, I talked to the writer of Mr. Trump's book replied to my post on LinkedIn. More on that. See you. 71st episode. There it goes on WhatsApp. Perfect. I'm live on YouTube. I'm live. Now I need to check out his podcast. As you said earlier, he's your inspiration. I watched the movie Match Point, says Mr. Tiwari. It's luck all the way. Mr. Tiwari. Wasn't it a beautiful movie? Beautiful movie. And Mr. Patil, by the way, let's congratulate Mr. Patil. He finished reading the second book, man. He finished movie books like we finish movies these days, right? How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big is the second book that Mr. Patil, you know, uh, read. Let's congratulate him. Good job, Mr. Patil. And Match Point. So Mr. Tiwari, I'm such a big fan of Woody Allen, sir. I really, really respect him. I have a lot of admiration for him, for his craft. That I ended up watching. Like he has a 50-year-old career, okay, and he's now 89, and he in these 50 years he has roughly made 50 movies. So he's made one movie every year on an average. So he's like, in the world of movie making, there is nobody that comes close to Woody Allen, sir, right? Yes, Mr. Scorsese sir is beautiful. He's just extraordinary. Coen brothers are lovely. Quentin Tarantino has his place. Steven Spielberg is a very commercially successful guy. But nobody comes to uh, Woody Allen, sir, as far as the quantum of work is considered and also the quality of it, actually. So he's in an indie space, makes small movies, has been making small movies forever. And those movies, look, just imagine, he's made 50 movies and he's been nominated for the best screenwriter like 20 times or something. You know, not 20. All in all, he's received like 24 Oscar nominations. Uh, and it's just extraordinary the number of movies that are great: Annie Hall, Manhattan, Crimes and Misdemeanors, Match Point, Vicky Cristina Barcelona. Uh, I'm forgetting a lot of them. Uh, Shit, I'm forgetting a lot of them, but a lot of great movies. And so I read his book, Apropos of Nothing. So Apropos of Nothing is his autobiography, Mr. Woody Allen. Funny, so funny. It made me laugh like it every 40 seconds, right? It was so funny. And the travesty is that he had a controversial case, where his like ex-partner sued him for child molestation. Nothing proven. He won all the court cases. Nothing got proven. But they cancelled him. So now he can't make a movie. But even at age 90, uh, he's not being able to make a movie because he's cancelled, right? So he's written a book. He's coming out with his first novel. So can you imagine the spirit, right? Extraordinary. So that's just next level. Speaking of movies and books, let's move to the show that we deserve. I have something very interesting for you guys. Extraordinarily interesting. Something crazy happened. So let's talk about that. And I guess you can hear me, of course. I'll just check myself on LinkedIn. I deeply related, relate to it. The chat. Perfect. So I'm audible on LinkedIn. I'm audible on YouTube. Let's begin the show that we deserve. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go. Oh, but before we go, gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition. Gotta follow the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck. And all we need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having hot water with some black pepper in it. Very good for me. And here we go. Oh my god, beautiful. Beautiful. Let's do it again. Sublime. It's healing. Brings us good luck. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you're not alone. It says that we're in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, so I had written a post about Art of the Deal, the book I had finished reading a while ago. I just thought I used to do this, right? I used to run this campaign called 52 Books in a Year, where I used to read a book and then post its review or my thoughts on that book with a picture. And I did that for 11 years, 2012 to 2022, right? Lately, I've not been doing that. So I had finished reading the book. I thought I should just write about it. So I wrote about it. And I said it's a great book and so on and so forth. And guess who came to comment on my post? Can you take a guess on who came to comment on my post about the book on Donald Trump, Mr. Trump? The guy who wrote that book, the ghostwriter, the co-author of the book, came to my post and he said that he regrets having written that book. Trump is a sociopath. He feels nobody should read it and so on. Mr. Tiwari says Mr. Trump. Well, if Mr. Trump came, that would be awesome. But no, for now the ghostwriter came and he said what he said, right? So a lot of people started like piling up on me that, hey, look at this. You know, the whole political chit chat. Now, I don't want to be political. I just appreciated a good book, right? I liked it. I found it funny. I wrote about it. Now, these people driven with politics, they started piling up on me that, hey, look at this. Now what do you have to say? And so on and so forth. And so I responded that this Mr. Tony Schwartz, he's the person. He wrote the book. He got a $250,000 advance for that book, the payment. In today's terms, it's about like $600,000-$700,000. He became famous because that book was a breakthrough success. That book grew, right? Leaps and bounds. It was a bestseller. He made a lot of money in royalties. He got famous. He rode on that fame, on that money for like 30 years. The book was published in 1987, right? He rode on that success for 30 years. And then he flipped the switch as soon as Mr. Trump announced his presidency. Okay? And he started saying that he's a sociopath. Now, is this like a moral awakening? Or is this political opportunism that you're pandering to your political base of lefties? Right? What is it? I don't see it as any honorable, moral awakening, moral clarity. I just view it as opportunism. I just view it as political pandering. I just view it as standing up for your second applause. Because 30 years later, you say that you hate the book, you wish nobody had read it. Well, why don't you, you know, turn in your yacht, man? Just turn in your yacht. Pay all the money back. No, you won't do that. You start talking, you give TEDx talks, you go to Bill Maher, you go to all TV shows, talk about. Then you have a company which talks about new business ethics and so on. This is just political opportunism. But the fun thing is that I wrote something, and the guy who wrote that book found out my post somehow, and talked to me. That's amazing. I have full respect for the book he's written, but all the virtue signaling, give me a break, man. Give me a break. So that was my thought. I had written a post about what Mr. Sabir Bhatia had said about Indian economy, and it was a few days ago. And who reached out to me on that post? Mr. Sabir Bhatia himself. So that's an old news. We're not going to talk about it. But this is fun, right? This is fun. Mr. Patil says, kudos for international reach. Ghostwriter's business that itself is questionable. Well, Mr. Patil, thank you. I don't agree with the ghostwriter business being questionable. Why is it a questionable business? Let's say you are a good writer, okay, and somebody comes to you, a very rich person, a very busy person, a very affluent person, and he says, man, I like your writings. Would you like to write my book? I'll tell you everything I know, and you put it up in your craft. And you say, yeah, sure, sir. And he pays you good money, and you write the book and you move on. Like Shoe Dog, you liked, right? Mr. Phil Knight didn't write that book. He also had a ghostwriter, because it's his book, it's his thoughts, it's his perspective on life, it's his journey, it's his book at the end of the day. But somebody else has to do the writing, right? The craft of writing is an art in itself, right? So I don't think the business is questionable. I think the moral awakening, or let's say the virtue signaling, so to speak, is questionable. Moving on, Keynes is looking to open a 5,000 crore, 4,995 crore. I wonder how they came up with this money. 4,995. They could have just said 5,000 crores. But yeah, 4,995 crore component manufacturing unit in Tamil Nadu. This is great. This is awesome. Tamil Nadu attracting manufacturing facilities, especially in the component sector, in the electronic sector. This is great news. The Thoothukudi plant to establish new manufacturing cluster in Deep South create 4,700 units. So what happens when something like this happens? Cascading effects, right? We've talked a lot about cascading effects. So cascading effects lead to these kinds of things where one factory starts and then the entire ecosystem begins to flourish, right? So good news for Tamil Nadu and India, and let's hope that this particular thing keeps moving forward. Miss Arushi Bhatia says, off topic, but whoever is gifting you these clothes, keep those people closer. They're a very sweet relative, so thank you so much. Moving on, quick commerce companies slow down, dark stores build out to control cash burn. So quick commerce companies, we've discussed this, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember. Instamart slowed down its number of dark stores, not making any dark stores, 42 dark store addition. Even the orders per dark store were going down, so they were positioning, no, those are going down because we have an average order value goal. We want to increase the average order values, so we are clubbing together orders, slotted deliveries, and so on and so forth. So we're basically becoming more efficient with the orders, but that sort of goes away from the plan, right? Anyway, so quick commerce companies are slowing down their new dark store build out, controlling cash burn. But Eternal is still at it. So Eternal has a $2 billion war chest, 16,000 crores in the bank, 16,000 crore rupees in the bank, which means that they are looking at expanding their store count. But Zepto and Instamart, both of which are left with some $500 million, like 4,000 crores, 500 to $700 million, they are not looking at increasing the dark store count. So what happened with the dark store mania was that these people started piling up dark stores, right? Now, what happened with that is that you can't have a dark store in a corner where real estate is cheap. You need to have a dark store in the vicinity, in the close vicinity of the population density, right? So you have to have the dark store set up in the very area that you're supposed to serve, which means real estate costs are really high, right? Real estate costs go up, rents go up, everything goes up. Now that happened because all of these companies, let's say in my area where I live, it's Dwarka, New Delhi. So in my area, one company established a dark store, right? Now the other company also has to establish a dark store there itself because they've got to compete in the delivery times and so on and so forth. Then there's another company. Then there's another company. There are like 8 companies, right? Is Eternal, Instamart, Zepto, Big Basket, Flipkart, Amazon. There's 6 companies already in fray, right? Now these companies have to set up dark stores. Because of one company setting it up, real estate costs goes up, rents go up, the model becomes unsustainable. So now these people are trying to renegotiate their lease agreements with these people. So, and they're also saying that the growth in their business is not coming from the tier 2 towns, majorly from the original places, the metropolitans, which is exactly what I had foretold. Uh, Buying capacity is limited. Rich people are limited. India's per capita income is still $2,800. How many quick commerce deliveries can $2,800 per capita income take? Uh, if you are offering that service, you'll have to sell it at a premium to be able to make money. But right now they're doing what cab aggregators did. They're incentivizing from both sides, so they're losing money. But let's see till when the gravy train runs, right? Speaking of VC-led gravy train, VCs flocking to Gift City to tap global investment opportunities. Gift City is a place in Gujarat where they're basically making a tax haven in India itself, where foreign investment can happen with ease and without the tax overload. Uh, Gift City is that place. It's pretty amazingly attracting a lot of. So they wanted to create their own alternative to Mauritius, let's say, a place like Mauritius. And that's what's happening with Gift City. VCs are setting up offices. So no news there, right? It basically less tax compliance, less regulatory overhang, more freedom, more investment leeway, and so on and so forth. So that's happening. Uh, Listed fintechs cut marketing spends to boost fundamentals. Well, fintech companies and banks, they are collectively in a bit of a stressful situation. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how we talked about banking and the impending troubles that the banking industry will face. Right? We talked about the net interest margins. You remember? Now, look at the headline right now. Slipping CASA deposits choking banks' access to low cost funds. Right? CASA ratio of 14 lenders down 150 BPS. Reliance on high cost bulk deposits hurting margins. The net interest margin play of banks getting hurt. CASA is current account, saving account, right? That ratio is going down. So all the deposits these people are getting are the high interest deposits, which are problematic, right? Low interest deposits, the retail deposits are not not happening, and due to which net interest margin is getting squeezed, and this is a bit of a problem. Needless to say, these banks expect these problems to go away, but this is exactly what we said, right? We said, and you can go to the 20th or 30th episode, somewhere in the 2010 to 30th episode, we talked about how banking will face a stress in the next quarter or so. So exactly what happened, right? Predictions going right. It feels so nice when you understand and we're a little ahead of the curve, and what you say actually makes sense, right? It's a very good place to be. So, listed fintechs are also looking at optimizing their marketing so that their growth can be a little easy on the money. Uh, Speaking of things that we talked about, IT grappling with cost pressures as pricing shifts from efforts to outcomes. So these people, have published something which we already talked about. With Gen AI, Agentic AI boosting productivity by 20 to 40%, clients are asking why they are still paying the same P per FTE. So IT companies work on two models. One is time and material cost, and one is FTE. Right? I'm forgetting the full form of FTE in IT. Full form, full-time equivalent, right? Basically, essentially total workload on the force, where people are paid full-time. So FTE and time and material cost are both manpower oriented costs, and those pressures are pricing pressures are essentially causing trouble, because now companies, their clients are looking at outcomes, right? Not the time and material which went into making the project, but essentially the final delivery of it. This has been going on for a very long time, but it's going to a head because of whatever is happening, right? So no surprise there. We've talked about it. We know about it. Viewers of Thinkers Free at least know about it. The new viewers, if you have any doubts, you can just ask me questions and we'll solve all your problems, right? That's what we do. Uh, Meta to sell 2 billion in data center assets to fund AI push. Now, generally, companies like Meta, they usually go solo as far as data centers and these things are considered, right? Because cash no problem, money no problem. But right now, these companies are looking at financial partners for these projects. So they're selling. Meta is pressing ahead with efforts to bring in outside partners to help fund the massive infrastructure needed to power AI. So Meta is really moving forward with a lot of investments, and something that says that investing $15 billion in an AI company scale, yeah, $14.5 billion in scale. Meta is really putting pedal to the metal as far as AI play is considered. Why? Because its core business model is under threat, right? So now you go to WhatsApp, you search, click on search, it starts telling you to use Meta AI, right, for search, and so on and so forth, even on Instagram. So every second spent on AI chat is a second stolen from social networking, right? So just like Google is facing a paradigm shift, Facebook is also facing a paradigm shift, and that's leading it to new things. So we've talked about this. Moving on. Repo rate seen staying put in wait for US Treasury trade clarity. So we were thinking about a rate cut that, given everything good, given the favorable tariff situation, inflation under control, we had already reduced the repo rate by 1%. So that ease of lending leads to new phase of growth for Indian economy. However, with the US tariff situation, the economists say that repo rate might just not go up. However, the interesting part is that amongst the economists surveyed, right, the 16 economists surveyed, 12 said that no repo rate reduction will happen right now because the economy is in trouble because of the US tariff situation. But the person who said, 4 out of 16 have said it's still gonna go with a 25%, 25 BPS, 0.25% repo rate reduction. And one of them had called out the previous rate reduction. So our cognitive bias is like, this guy was right before, this guy's gonna be right again, right? But you never know. You never know. Moving on. Nuke entry code for private companies being set. We've discussed this a lot. We had a very fabulous discussion, by the way, on nuclear energy yesterday, where we talked about, just gonna take a second on this. We talked about how Mr. Elon Musk, who's heavy on solar, said all energy is solar energy, right? He said all energy is solar energy. Why? Because even the fossil fuels which have come, they've come from decayed and compressed organic matter for millions of years. And where did organic matter come from? Solar, right? Sun. So he says solar is the source of all energy. And then somebody replied to him, a very known figure. He said, solar is not the source of all energy. Nuclear is the source of all energy, because sun is essentially a fusion reactor, right? So nuclear is facing a renewed interest. Thank God, finally, we've been rooting for it for a long time, and nuke entry code for private companies is gonna be set up. So we might just see something happening there. Moving on. ED to quiz bank executives in the Reliance Group case. We talked a lot about Mr. Anil Ambani's case, where bad things happened, loans were given, fake bank guarantees were issued, so on and so forth. So now ED is quizzing the bank execs like, hey man, these guys gave you the fake bank guarantee. Why didn't you go to the court? Why didn't you tell anybody? Why didn't you tell on these guys when they gave you a fake bank guarantee? You knew, right, that it was fake. You found out that it was fake. Then why didn't you go? So, a valid question. Moving on. A lot of political chit-chat. Very disgraceful, man. Very disgraceful. I feel ashamed to hear the political discourse of our country. It's just embarrassingly stupid, right? You're like, man, come on. Listen to Thinker's Frequency. Moving on. India adds teeth to its Indo-Pacific strategy. India has been solidifying its Indo-Pacific strategy past week, especially defense ties, ahead of the visit in Philippines. So no surprise there. Defense sector, by the way, is the stock market wise is at a low, right? It has fallen down 11% all over, and that's exactly what we said, that in the midterm, in the short term, like a couple of quarters, we expect this particular thing happening. However, in the long term, and when I say long term, I don't mean 5 years. In the long term, I mean 9 months or let's say 10 months. We should see it picking up again, because it's very clear that defense is a national strategic priority, and just like energy as a sector, it is as important as energy as a sector. So we might just see a lot of happenings there, right? Chief Minister Naidu, Chandrababa Naidu, he's essentially cancelled a few projects, right? He said turns heat on defaulters in green energy space. So a lot of green energy projects were issued during his first term, like previous term. Then another government came, and these companies didn't move at all. So they took the land parcels and didn't do anything. So what Mr. Naidu has been doing is like, this is not allowed. You got to return the token and cancel. Your project is cancelled. We're cancelling your project. So Mr. Naidu is known for very, very fast implementation of things. If you remember, viewers of Thinker's Frequency would remember how one of his very big projects, was it the river project? It was a river project where it was approved in a week. So the proposal was submitted on a Wednesday. The hearing happened on a Friday. On a Tuesday, it got sent to the ministry, and on Thursday it was approved. So he's known for his speed, and he's really looking forward to quick implementation of green energy projects, which is great, because a lot of announcements that we have, a lot of announcements that we see, they're just announcements, right? They're PR jobs. They don't really lead to anything. Most of them, a lot of them are not followed through, and this is how they're not followed through. Now imagine something announced back in 2018, and you find out that the land parcel is still idle and nothing has happened on that project, and it's supposed to be a green energy project, right? Not cool. You need somebody like Mr. Naidu to push those things through. Moving on. Credit card home buys abroad put Indians in regulatory crosshairs. So this is a complicated case. We discussed about this, by the way, that a lot of Indians actually bought properties in UAE by swiping their credit cards abroad, right? So there's an LRS scheme, remittance scheme, according to which you cannot spend like more than $250,000 uh, abroad on foreign purchases and so on and so forth. Now, that had some caveats that when you're outside, you can still make those purchases, right? But if you're outside, you cannot make a capital investment with that limit. So, what these people did unadvised was they actually ended up buying land on their cards to escape some sort of tax. So what the government is saying is that the builder has to refund you that money, and you've got to pay that money legally if you need that. Otherwise, it's gonna be a bit of a trouble. Very, very complicated. The good news for these guys is that they're buying land abroad, which means they're rich. Happy for them. You gotta be happy for them, right? Moving on. uh, FMCGs dump laggard brands. So FMCG is looking at reorienting itself, calibrating itself to meet whatever things are happening, the changes that are happening. Now, FMCG industry as a whole, the incumbents are facing a lot of changes, majorly because of D2C brands, the new companies that have come for, and amidst the changing customer sentiment, the consumer demand, the consumption pattern, these companies are essentially recalibrating their existing brands. So a lot of companies of these are actually shutting down a few brands which were not really making it. Some are looking at recharging their old brand portfolios and so on and so forth. So Imami's, there was some hair product, it didn't work. Now they want to push it ahead. And Varun Beverages, the Coca-Cola bottler, it's looking at shutting down a particular beverage from the market because it's not. Now this is obvious. This kind of arrangement, this kind of recalibration keeps happening and should happen, and especially in a fast-paced environment where D2C brands are taking center space in the conversation. A lot of these companies actually even ended up buying a lot of products, a lot of D2C brands. So if you remember, Marico Marico was Parachute guys, Harsh Mariwala. He's written a book called Harsh Realities. Not a good book at all. Marico bought Beardo, which was beard product. In a similar space, Man Company was probably bought by Imami. Ustra Exist, it was essentially an info edge company which ended up buying a majority stake. So a lot of companies have been acquired by these FMCG players, but that's not enough. HUL bought Minimalist, as we all know, and so on and so forth. So this bit is happening. The pullbacks are happening as far as brands that are not being able to sustain the traction. So everything looks good in the beginning, right? When you spend a lot of marketing money, things move and you see, oh, this is happening. But only when the money runs out, you figure out whether something is actually moving in a sustainable way. Moving on, FPIs keep faith in the IPO story, infuse $1.7 billion in July. So FPIs are, net sellers in the secondary market. So they are essentially net sellers in the secondary play, the markets that they exist in. They are adding more selling positions than buying, but IPOs are going heavy. So not just retail investors, FPIs are also very bullish as far as the public offerings are considered of new companies. That's what's happening. As far as analysis is considered, there's weakness at the 25,000 level of Nifty. So they're saying the 25,000 is the resistance level, and it might just, if it gets breached, you're gonna see a drawdown. Mr. Tiwari has a nice comment. That's what I like about you, as you call out bad as bad, not just positive. About that Marico book. Oh yes, that's like, I believe in it, right? I don't trust somebody who's just full of praise for everything. I think you cannot trust anybody who's just all good words for everything. So I read this Mariko book, Harsh Realities. That was actually a badly written book, and not just it was not just a badly written book. Also, foundationally there was something wrong with that book. So I'll tell you why. Now, Mr. Harsh Mariwala comes from a very rich family. Okay, just extraordinarily rich family. He's always been very rich. His the family where he comes from, they used to run a very successful business, and he's one of the people who traveled abroad to study, right, back in early 1980s or something, 1970s or 80s. Okay, so he's been a blue blood all this while, you know. And while he was describing his childhood or his youth, he called himself middle class, you know. Just imagine, like, that's like you're lacking self-awareness or what is this? You're describing your life, and that life is extraordinarily opulent. You're traveling by plane in 70s and 80s, right, in India, and you're going to US to study because of your rich family background. Your family runs an extremely successful empire, and then you're calling yourself like a typical middle class, you know, upbringing. I'm like, okay, sure, that's fine. So, badly written book, a pretty boring book also. So, as it began, it became interesting because Parachute as a brand, the company. So, Mr. Harsh Mariwala's story is very interesting. Uh, he ran this. He was a part of this big, business, the family distributor business. But then he wanted to branch out on his own because his uncles didn't really want, to change, to modernize. They had their set ways of doing business. He had starry eyes, so he essentially asked his uncles that I need to go away, and he started a new company called Marico, right? Uh, which was into the whole parachute thing, and they had a business. They had an office. Let's say in Delhi you have Khari Bauli. In Mumbai there's Bharivandi, some area which I'm forgetting. It's a spice market. So that's where his office was. So it was difficult to attract people to that office because it was like a, an old wholesale area. And but eventually Marico became successful, Parachute became successful. But then HUL came to target Marico. So they wanted to buy out Marico, the Parachute thing. But he was pretty green, so he didn't sell out to HUL. And then HUL essentially had a direct fight with Parachute to start their own brands. So he, not just Parachute, he had some other oil as well, the eating oil, I'm forgetting. But yeah, so they had a direct fight in which he essentially triumphed. So that's the game. But that sounds very impressive, at the outset of it. But to be honest, he had a very strong position, and the market wasn't such that you could just flush the fund. It wasn't the VC era of doing things that you just wipe out the competitor because of something, and he couldn't have been wiped out. So, but overall, not a good book. Great story though. So I read Mr. Mariwala's story in Sonu Bhasin ma'am's book, The Inheritors. That was a very good run on his story because that was written by Sonu Bhasin ma'am, so she probably took some chaff out. But his particular book, the autobiography, was not as good, unfortunately. But great guy, extraordinarily inspiring figure, titan, pioneer of the industry. All respect, just not a good book. Moving on. RBI to return $5 billion in Forex swap today. So Forex swap is happening. Now, what do you think happens with a Forex swap? Uh, we know about this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency know. We've talked a lot about how Forex swaps affect things, right? Affect economies. So we know that rupee has been fallen, right? Rupee has fallen quite a lot. And we also know that there's excess liquidity in the money system, right? The comfortable range for liquidity for RBI is 2.5 lakh crores, the surplus liquidity, But at the moment, we have 2.86 lakh crores of liquidity, right? So there's excess liquidity, surplus liquidity, and rupee is also going down, right? Has gone down. Now, what do you do? What happens when you do a forex swap? Okay, so you have a lot of dollars, okay, and you bought those dollars against rupees, and then you do a match. When that swap matures, you return those dollars, get the money, get rupees, okay. So what happens then is that you essentially suck the liquidity out of the system, right? You suck some liquidity out of the system, and then you also give dollars to the system. So when you give dollars, take rupee, the rupee goes up, and dollar, since there's more supply of dollar, the dollar can go down, cannot go down, because dollar is a huge market. It's beyond your control totally. But the rupee slightly goes up, the liquidity goes down, the surplus liquidity goes down, and rupee goes a little up. These people have done a little faulty analysis of the situation. The reversal of a $5 billion rupee buy swell swap conducted late January is scheduled on Monday, potentially draining about 43,000 crore from the banking system if RBI chooses to give the delivery of dollars entirely, bank treasury dealers and economists said. They said it's gonna drain out rupees, that's okay. But where they go wrong is when they say treasury dealers and economists said that RBI can either give dollars delivery, which will simultaneously drain out rupee, or roll over the swap. Roll over the swap is like you keep it up, right? You keep it. Currently, liquidity surplus is in 2.8 lakh crore. While liquidity currently is in surplus, RBI is expected to allow 5 billion DOP to mature, draining rupee funds from the system. And they say that this could actually, hurt the rupee, but they're wrong. It'll actually help the rupee. When you suck out the excess liquidity from the system and you also return the dollars will be in excess, the rupees will be, in control. It'll lead to higher rupee value. So let's see what happens. I'm pretty positive this is right. So moving on. Very interesting, right? Not many people can even understand the VRRs and so on and so forth, but we do. And I do solely because of thinker's frequency. But because when I used to read these things before, I just, put them away because they were not of direct consequence to me, right? But now, because of, this discussion, I've gotten deeper into these things, which is very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Moving on. MFI stress is easing, festive season to bring better times. We've talked a lot about this. How the banking industry is banking on the festive season to change the country, right? Nepal China steel may face duty evasion probe. So you know what happens? We've talked a lot about this, by the way. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember that China has so much of steel. China has more steel than the entire world combined, right? The entire world can stop making steel and it'll run fine because China has so much of steel. So countries have to literally not buy Chinese steel. They have to place like anti-dumping duty, because if they start buying Chinese steel, their entire steel industry, the native steel industry, will die, right? So that's what's now China obviously tries to maneuver through these dumping duties and so on and so forth. One of those ways where it did the maneuvering was it used Nepal. So Nepal has basically duty-free flow coming to India, right? So now these companies, the government found out that Nepal is sending more steel than even its facilities allow. So they don't have facilities to actually show for the steel that they're exporting to India, which suddenly woke up Indians, the governments and regulators, like what is happening here? How is Nepal being able to send so much of steel? So these people found out that this is essentially China routing their shipments. So now they're going for the duty evasion probe and so on and so forth. Not very surprising. Not very surprising. The ways in which China maneuvers trade barriers is amazing. So US had placed a barrier on Nvidia chips, the higher the for the more advanced version of chips to China. So no advanced version of chips to China was US stance. What did China do? It sent its executives with a huge bunch of equipment to Singapore, where they trained their models on the latest heavy chips. They just went back, you know. So nobody can stop China, or they should, but nobody's been able to do that. Let's say, yeah, yeah. I'm just taking a sip. Mr. Manish Kondhalkar asks, "What's your view on the future of countries like USA, Europe? Do you think they are in decline? What's your hope for India?" So, of course, US is in decline. Oh no, I'm sorry. Europe is in clear decline. Europe is in real trouble, uh, and US is obviously in decline as well. But US is trying to fight its way through it. It's doing a lot of fighting to avert the decline. A lot of people are betting on US decline, like Mr. Ray Dalio. He's pegged it. He said that in his book, he mentioned that he expected a very big depression somewhere in the late quarters of 2024 or the mid quarters of 2025. So according to him, US should have gone into a serious recession or even a depression somewhere around this time. So a lot of people are betting on US decline, but I think what US is trying to do might avert that for some time. Europe has less hope, because even in AI scene, the only European company. So Europe is a tech colony. It has no tech products to speak of. It's just like India. It uses all American tech companies' products. Even in AI space, it lost out on the buzz, right? The only company which it has, as far as the whole AI landscape, is Mistral, right? Which is a nice company. I wish them luck, but that's not as much representation as is, let's say, enough. They should have had better representation, at least in this frontier of technology, but they don't. Their auto sector is really in stress because of China. Their advanced manufacturing is in stress because of China. So for 30 years, for the last 20 years, 30 years, they just ended up outsourcing a lot. The offshoring, the McKinsey types who led the offshoring revolution, essentially hollowed out US and Europe from the inside. And now they're totally dependent on China, which has progressed so much that not just low-end manufacturing or mid-end manufacturing, it is now leading the world in high-tech manufacturing, even in automotives, even in biotechnology. They've given away all the ground to China, and their population is old. They don't want to work. When the world is talking about new technologies, Europe is talking about 4-day work week, and so on and so forth. So Europe is in trouble. And the last question is hope for India. Well, India is India is my country. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm doing my best. I'm building a company. It's in AI. I'm trying my best to do whatever I can. But it's, I want to be optimistic about India. And honestly, there has been a lot of good news coming from India since the last few years, let's say, as far as industry is considered. But there are some problems, and those problems, if you compartmentalize those problems, they are mostly in bureaucracy, in law and order, and in culture, which is a result of these two things, right? Administration and legal. So it's tough to be optimistic about India in all, but I am. Let's hope for something good. So moving on. Exporters urged to build brands in a way around Trump tariffs. So we've talked a lot about how Trump tariffs are going to affect India. We talked a lot about the tariffs, how $88 billion worth of tariff. India exports some 88 to 90 billion dollars worth of goods to US, and the current tariffs are gonna hit like half of it. Okay, half of it. So 44 billion dollars of worth of exports are going to get affected, right? Now what do you do? So India says that you should start, like, build a brand around it and so on and so forth. Now these advices are obviously not very valid, that you should build a brand so you can be foolproof as far as the tariffs are considered. Easier said than done. What they're trying to do is they're trying to use other countries to essentially tie up with other countries who have a favorable tariff situation. So I'll just read it out for you. Uh, the commerce industry has also asked sectors such as marine to suggest if any scheme based on incremental hiring can be worked out, as Ecuador, a major shrimp producer, would face a comparatively lower 15% tariff. So, Ecuador, major shrimp producer, 15% tariff, while India has 25% tariff and a penalty. There's a feeling that many countries may not be able to create capacities soon. Even clients will not be able to shift to Ecuador overnight. So India could play some sort of a trading helping hand as far as you know that is considered. So these people initially saying it's important for Indian exporters to do brand building and promotion to come out of the clutches and so on and so forth. Now, Indians have never been much of brand builders. We've always been commodity traders. India has been a trade economy. Uh, Basically, just commodities. That's what we've been doing. And that's hurt the country a lot because in commodities, there's less value addition. There's no value addition, essentially. You're just building something, trading it as a commodity. You get very, very thin margins, and all the basic basis of making money is the quantum, the volume, so to speak, right? The brand, building a brand essentially inflates the margin because then you have some sort of value added to the product which speaks to you, for you. Until now, Indians have not been looking at that. This is a very new argument that I've seen. It's easier said than done, as I said. It's not easy, especially when somebody has not done that for a very long time. Uh, Moving on, a battle for the captive may intensify again. So in 2022, the telcos and the tech people, they had a battle. They literally drew out swords and started killing each other like Sparta. No, not kidding. Just kidding. What they did was the battle was about 5G. And there's 5G, the spectrum which these companies take, the telco providers, and then they sell it, give services. That's their business model. But what the government was looking at was giving some sort of captive 5G to companies who, let's say, if you run TCS or if you run Infosys and so on and so forth, they were thinking of giving these companies the option of buying like a captive 5G spectrum. Now, this was radically against the business model of telcos. They said, "What are you doing? If this happens, we're going to lose money. We are paying so much of money to provide this service. Ideally, these people should use us as clients, right?" They in an analogy. Now, analogies are not the right way to think, Mr. Tiwari, but here's one. They said, the telecos guy said, let's say if there's an oil field, right, and somebody has bought the oil field, and they've bought the rights of mining, and then somebody's house, there's oil underneath. Would you let that guy also take out oil and make money? That's essentially their argument. A poor analogy again, but they said that this is anti-competitive. This is going to be bad for the telco industry. So in 2022, it died. But these companies came back now in 2025. They're saying that we should relook at that because this will lead to a lot of hindering of innovation. A lot of innovation will get hurt if this doesn't happen. Why? Because these companies have the opportunity of fine tuning that particular spectrum according to their needs and fitting it to their projects and so on and so forth, which wouldn't happen if they're just using the service provided by telcos. So in exact words, the ecosystem has to develop and the government has to make sure it becomes affordable for people to implement private 5G, which is distinct from public 5G, which mobile operators are deploying, right? So they say that originally for private 5G to take off, we had advocated that enterprises should be given spectrum. That would have been the way to go. So these people are saying that this would hinder innovation, right? 100 megahertz within limited campus for internal use, which would not impact public network. So they said this is not going to impact public network, but obviously telcos were against it, and they were saying no, 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 man, this is gonna hurt. But this conversation is back in the fray, so let's see what happens. Very interesting, very interesting. Colgate not pleased with H1 India show, hopeful of H2. You know, they say that the trade isn't that good. So a lot of you know FMCG companies. So we've talked a lot about FMCG companies and their results, and how do you read their results? Are they symptomatic of a larger slowdown, or is it just Colgate's problem? So right now, they're not even pretending that it's an overall thing. They say that we are not pleased with the H1, the first half of this year. We're hopeful for the second half. The performance we had in India is not good, but we feel good about where we are headed in the back half. We saw some sluggishness in the urban class of trade. We will certainly address as we move back in the innovation strategy. So earlier, the conversation used to be around, oh, this market is screwed, this economy is screwed, the consumption is screwed, and so on and so forth. But now it's no longer being used as an alibi, which says something, right? Which says something. Optimal time to open grow hospitality brands in India, says ITC Hotels chief. With our quality of service, we can add value to branded residents. We are in discussions. It's not just the luxury segments. So hospitality brands are really looking green. A lot of investments actually happened in hospitality. This is very good news for Oyo. The sentiment, if it stays, if it stays, it might just be successful as far as IPO is considered, which will be a very big travesty, but it will be good news for the company. Mr. Patil asks, why will this not say it's a market problem? I'm a bit confused. Well, Mr. Patil, they cannot say it's a market problem because other people have been able to report good news, right? ITC showed 20% revenue growth. Even HUL showed some revenue growth, some 6%. Imami showed growth. A lot of other companies. You must have not been present in the last few episodes, because a lot of FMCG products players had good earnings, not bad earnings. So people are expecting bad earnings, but they actually did well, in a very, very objective kind of a way. So if other FMCG companies have been able to do good, how can you blame the market? That's the play. Generally, it's a good strategy to blame the market, because that sort of averts the responsibility, the accountability, and you can go free. But you can't do that when other people's are green, right? So that's the problem. Okay, got it. Thanks. Of course, you're welcome. So hospitality plays up. AI is in trouble, man. AI as in not artificial intelligence, but Air India cancelled flights over technical issue. Singapore to Chennai, and then flight to Delhi was disrupted by cabin heat. The cabin was hot. Air India really, really took a big one, right? It's just so sad, the crash, and then everything bad. Like Air India has not had one good news to speak of. NCR gets a reality fresh coat of investor trust. Elan raised 250 crores from Piramal Finance. Whiteland raised 250 crores. Some companies have raised money, right? Institutional money flowing in as far as reality is considered. Now, reality is good. That's real estate, is giving mixed news. A lot of mixed news. For a long time, it went up, and it went up like crazy. It went up bubble level up, right? And that led to a very big slowdown. Things stopped selling. People were fearing that something bad can happen, like a deflation in prices and so on and so forth. That happened to a bit. So these people started turning up the volume as far as PR is considered. They said no, the real estate thing is strong and so on and so forth. And yet again, they've announced some fundraise as far as NCR realty market is considered. So NCR's realty market. So my brother and I were having a discussion that how does NCR become better, right? Is it possible that if the real estate market crashed, the authorities will be forced to have a relook at how they've been maintaining the city? would that be a good thing to happen? The crash of a real estate market in India. And after a lot of discussions, we found out that no, it's not going to be a good news, because the decline, no matter how steep in the NCR real estate market, would not stop the inflow. So the only thing that's gonna go well for the real estate market, when there's actual migration out from the city, right? That's what's gonna help, or like force the authorities to have a deeper look at the city. But that's not gonna happen. Even if real estate, NCR real estate crashed a little, it's just gonna attract more people from outside. So no good news there. But good news for the realty players if they're being able to raise money. These people have done a research. They're finding out that exercise fights anxiety and depression. New study on that. That's not a study they needed to do, right? That's not a study they needed to do. Speaking of studies they didn't need to do, they recently found out a link. They said that alcohol is more, responsible for unplanned pregnancies, while cannabis is not. So they did a heavy research. They did a lot of data finding to come to the conclusion that a lot of unplanned pregnancies had alcohol as one of the factors, while cannabis doesn't do that. Now, can you think of a way that they could have saved money on that research, which essentially told them that people do stupid things when they're drunk, and they don't do all of that when they're high on marijuana, because cannabis essentially makes them cautious, makes them relaxed, but not really out of control. Can you think of a way where they could have saved some money on that research? You can't think of that, right? I think you can think of a way where people could have saved some money on the research, which effectively came out with the conclusion that people do stupid things, and on alcohol. So Mr. Patil says, because alcohol helps in socializing, but cannabis doesn't, as told by Mr. Nishant. They should have asked Nishant. Yes, they could have asked me, and they could have paid me a little bit of that research money, and I would said, like, save your money, half of it. And yes, the answer is yes. People do stupid things when they're drunk, right? With that, we come to the end of the 71st episode of Thinker's Frequency. It was a lot of fun talking to Mr. Patil, Mr. Tiwari, Ms. Bhatia, Mr. Kandhalkar, everybody. It was beautiful. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking, fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. Our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. It's 9:08. We punch in anytime. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you tomorrow. Same place, same time, hopefully. Bye-bye.